very refreshing, very needed, very helpful, inspiring to hear what we do right and what we do wrong and what are things that we can work on in collaboration together. So I want to thank you for coming today. I am going to step out in a few minutes. It looks like we have to refill some things on our small business information table there. But I invite you to stay after this particular workshop. Later this afternoon, we're going to have a workshop on our new mobile food vending program. We're also, again, in Eastmont Town Center today from 9 to 11. This afternoon, we'll be in West Oakland from 1 to 5 with a workshop on 21 success tips for entrepreneurs. And that'll be at the Mandela Gateway Apartments. And we're also having a workshop with Town Squared this afternoon as well from 2 to 4. So Kira can tell you about that one if you have any questions. And then tomorrow we have a day all about financing. It'll be from startup to existing expansion financing. There'll be a lenders fair. We have about 17 lenders that will be here tomorrow. And then we will also be at First Friday. Stop by and visit. And it's a great celebration because it's called Fiestas Sin Fronteras, which means festival without walls or without borders. And this is about supporting our immigrant community, and frankly, quite a few of Oakland's residents own businesses that come from immigrant backgrounds. So we really want to make sure we include them in this celebration. And then on Saturday, we'll be participating as well as part of Fiesta Sin Fronteras, who's joined up with the Cinco de Mayo Festival in the Fruitvale. So we invite you to that as well, to come and check out that particular part of town. So with that, welcome. And I will be here after back in a few minutes. And if you have any questions about financing, about business startup, about a key connection to the city, that's our job. So let me know, and I will be in the back here. And I now would like to introduce Vice Mayor Annie Campbell-Washington. Annie has been great. She's worked with the city, and she knows some of the constraints, some of the opportunities that we have as a community to improve and better our relationships with our business community. So we're very excited that she was able to guide us. And she's very involved in her neighborhood, which is in the District 4 area. So we had the opportunity to visit District 4 yesterday, and we had a great workshop, by the way. So I'm going to turn it over to Annie, and she can tell you more about her work. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Annie Campbell-Washington, and I'm Vice Mayor of the City of Oakland and also the Oakland City Council member for District 4, which includes Diamond, Laurel, Montclair, which all have commercial business districts, and as well as Redwood Heights, Oakmore, Melrose, Fairfax neighborhoods. And Fairfax also has a business district that we're trying to revitalize. So I have a lot of opportunity as a council member to interact with small business owners and really get to know their issues in a very individual way. I wanted to talk just a tiny bit about my background as a way of introduction, and I really appreciate you coming today and spending your time this way. I came to this position with a background, a long history of working here in the city of Oakland. I started here in the city of Oakland in the year 2000, and about that same time, I worked with a very close dear friend of mine, Erin Kilmer-Neal, to start a program called Oakland Unwrapped, which was celebrating Oakland artists and local businesses. And we started the Oakland Indie Awards together, and then that grew into Oakland Grown. And so I have this passion for our small business community here in Oakland and our artists here in Oakland, because I really believe that you are what makes Oakland thrive. I really believe you're what gives Oakland the character that it has, and really are helping to maintain the culture and character that we love about our city. So when I came into office about 2.5 years ago, it was right after the garbage contract had passed, or it was at least it was right after the first fees were rolling through. And I heard from a group of small business owners, mostly restaurants and cafes, that were hit very hard by that garbage contract. And through conversations, we decided to start meeting on a regular basis so that we could hear directly about what the issues were for small businesses. And because it was a passion of mine, I really felt like there would be ways that we could work together in a much more meaningful way, and we really could begin to have the city of Oakland be a partner with small business rather than an impediment to small business. So I want to thank you for being here today. You're what is making this work happen and be real and really develop real solutions is because we're hearing the voices of actual small business owners. And I'm so thrilled today to introduce to you a portion of our small business task force that was formed out of these conversations. We brought forward a formal request to form an Oakland Small Business Task Force, and each council member and the mayor added appointees, nominees onto that Small Business Task Force. We had a very tight timeline and an agenda to get work done and make recommendations, and they're going to talk today about what that process was like, how we came up with those recommendations, and how we're going to move that work forward. So thank you so much for being here. I welcome you, and please reach out to our office anytime if we can be supportive to you. Thank you. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy.
So good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Amy Hilliard, and I wear a couple hats for that are relevant today. One, I'm a small business owner. My husband, Chris Hilliard, and I own Farley's Coffee, or Farley's East on Broadway. And then I'm also a facilitator and was one of the founding members of Oakland Indie Alliance, which was a group that Annie was talking about that came together to help jumpstart this work. So since we're a small group, I would love just everybody to tell us who you are and who you represent, because it's an intimate group and we're going to have some interaction. So can I call on you in the back first and say who you are and what brings you here today?
Hey everyone, my name is Mark Collado, and Mark with a C. And I'm here on behalf of Shift Local, and we're here just talking about our love for small businesses.
Alright, my name is Alessandro Mayone. I work at State of California, and I'm also a small business owner.
I'm Dan. I do work at a small startup, but I'm doing mostly out of interest as a person who lives in Oakland.
I'm Viola Gonzalez. I'm the former executive director of American Corporation, which helped microenterprise development, especially immigrant owners. And I'm also here partly because I'm a longtime resident of Oakland, but also I'm helping to implement some work on BRT, which affects longtime business owners in Oakland.
Great. Oh, sorry, hold on, keep going. Yeah, please. Down the line.
I'm Andy Nelson. I actually work at a nonprofit in East Oakland, and we've been working with a number of businesses who were impacted by the BRT, and was on the technical advisory committee with other earlier.
My name is Hugh Guerrero. I'm a representation for Bell for a small business for 40 years, and I'm very happy to be here for many solutions.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Crozier, and I founded and run Optima Business Bootcamp. We're a member-owned business accelerator here in Oakland, supporting freelancers, small businesses, and social entrepreneurs in launching and growing their business.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ashish Patel. I'm co-owner of Hatch, and also developing a technology solution for small businesses.
Everyone, I'm Jonathan Fong. I'm the co-market manager at the Quezos Jacqueline Square Farmers Market. We have a space knowing that we can support and incubate small businesses and community.
I'm Hillary Mier. I serve in our Open Recycles, our city recycling program. So in particular, I've been working with businesses on their trash recycling composting programs for many years. And I recently turned several of my hobbies into businesses.
Good morning, I'm Susana Morales. I'm a small business owner. I grew up in the Fruitvale District, and currently my office is in East Oakland. So I have a deep interest in understanding how we can revitalize the entire city and be more equitable for our businesses.
Hi, I'm Darlene Crane, and my company is the Crane Works. I've been working primarily in Oakland and the East Bay to come up with a systematic approach to business growth for existing businesses. And so I've developed research, programs, consulting consulting tools, and I'm integrating them into my corporate consulting work so that there's a complete body of knowledge for businesses from, I would say, 5 to 7 years to exit. And the youngest we work with are 1 year old. The oldest ones we work with are 62 years old, and we've gotten successful exits. Thank you.
I'm Adam Simons. I work for Vice Mayor Campbell Washington. Graham.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Daniels, and I'm a believer that finance is the backbone of all small businesses and organizations. So I created a business called We Heart Finance, and I do all things financial management, accounting, and bookkeeping.
Hi, my name is Christine Kern. I'm an Oakland resident, huge proponent of small businesses and small business owner myself.
Hi, my name is Douglas Zameta. I am an economist. I have two non-profit organizations, and I am business advisor. Now I am building other business in Alameda, and also I enjoy Spanish Chamber. I am director of the Spanish Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
I'm Clara Pascal. I'm with Town Squared. We're an online platform for businesses to connect businesses and help build community and network throughout Oakland.
Good morning. My name is Ben Taylor. I'm the Destination Development Manager for Visit Oakland. We're the tourism board for the city. So many of the businesses that we represent are small businesses here in Oakland.
Good morning. I'm Sophia Vizes. I'm an interior designer with a sustainable building advisor as well. And mostly my partner and I, we have been working in San Francisco, where we're looking to expand on the east side, especially since we live in Jingletown. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Jo Cook, and I live in Oakland, but I run Pacific Community Ventures, and we're a nonprofit that provides small businesses with access to capital and mentoring and things to help them grow and create jobs. And we have been trying to connect for like 6 months, so good to see you here, Viola.
Hi, Tina Tamale Ramos, former legacy business owner. My family owned a business for 71 years that we shuttered in 2015. I am currently the Oakland Community Liaison for Town Squared. I'm here with my coworker Kira, and we are your team for Oakland. So if you would like to join our network to help communicate with your other fellow business owners here in Oakland, just give us a call or just talk to us and we'll sign you up.
Royce, again, registration.
Hi everyone, my name is Royce. I recently started with Garmin. I'm Royce with the Alliance for Community Development, and we're a local nonprofit that works to support local endeavors, entrepreneurs to get access to capital and resources.
All right, well, we have a whole representation of the small business network here. We have finance, we have nonprofits, we have business owners, we have people from different parts of the city. So we should probably solve a lot of problems today, or at least have information that helps us solve those problems. So what I wanted to do is tell you, Annie gave you some of this background, and this is kind of preaching to the choir, but I wanted to give you a little bit of how we see the history of how we are here today. So who remembers the election of 2015? Everybody? Yes. So what was really true about that election is it really manifested how progressive Oakland is as a town, because these were two kind of marketing things that happened. So one was Measure FF, was really passed with over 80% of the vote. And that was about lifting up our workers and making sure that they can have a sustainable living wage and thrive here in Oakland. And I'm sure most of us in this room, support that. The other thing that we saw in that election was campaigns based on Made in Oakland, which is really about how do we keep Oakland local, how do we keep it vibrant, how do we keep it diverse, how do we have the color and creativity that all of our small, local, independent businesses come. And Mayor Schaaf won, and it was a lot on that platform of keeping Oakland local and Oakland grown. So we have in our community these two things that are complementary, but sometimes when rapid change happens, they can be at odds, especially for small businesses. So so what happened then is Measure FF passed. It was a surprise to a lot of the businesses. It was a surprise to the city. We had 3 months to like deal with all of the logistics around how to implement, how to understand Measure FF. It wasn't just the wage, it was also sick time, it was, you know, we had to think about workers' comp, we had to think about service charge, so it was very complicated, and so a lot of cafes and restaurants, which are very high labor, came together to one, be in community and try to figure out different business models, but also to then partner with the city. So you see, this was actually on Farley's East Parklet when Mayor came, and Sal's up there, my husband's up there, Chris. And that was really to demonstrate that we were all in this together with one of our workers as well, that we, both independent local businesses and our workers and the city, was together to move through this transition. We also partnered with Oakland Grown, who helped us do some campaigning to remind voters that not only there was a consequence to having higher wages, a living wage, and it was higher prices. So a lot of us had to raise prices upward to 20% to offset that. And that was a big shock for a consumer to be like, whoa, my cup of coffee costed this yesterday, and today it costs 20% more. So we really had to continue to build awareness about that. And as soon as we kind of got our footing and we're like, you know, moving through it and everybody's adjusting to it, the waste management contract came down. And for those of you who remember the waste management contract, those of us who have a lot of compost, who like work really hard to compost our products, were being charged more for compost than we were for garbage. And our garbage rates were sometimes 50, sometimes 60% higher than they were before the contract. So this is a group of small businesses, and Gail Lillian and Maria from Liba Falafel and Maria Aldretti from Lucas really stood out as leaders to partner with the city to say, hey, like these are the unintended consequences of this, like how do we find a better solution because this isn't working for us. And that was really the tipping point for us as a group, as small business, to say, you know what, we have to have a better solution to work together, because we're starting to feel like the polar bears on the iceberg. The environment, the climate is changing rapidly, and we are having a hard time adapting. We don't have enough time to adapt. So some of us are melting into the ocean, and then there's no more ice for us to, if the ice goes, then we go, and it's very hard for us to continue to start our small businesses, the things that the populace told us we really want to have here in Oakland. So how do we work with you, the city, to help figure out how to find ways to promote, to support, to engage existing businesses and help support them through this transition and make the conditions so that other small business can start, not just the corporations who have big corporate centers and can pay for the high rents and can have a loss to have their brand here in Oakland. So that is how we then partnered with some friends. And as Annie said, Annie had a long history of kind of supporting small business, and Jose Corona, who couldn't be here today, he led ICA Intercity Advisors for I think almost 10 years, and he was all about building a workforce in the city. So we knew that we had friends in city government that could help us creatively find a solution to make the sustainable conversation happen, so we wouldn't have a Measure FF, we wouldn't have a waste management surprise, we would have a direct dialogue and also a way to connect all the people who care about this, so we can really lift up small businesses as well. So that's how the task force came to be. So that's our little history lesson, and I'm really honored to introduce the task force, and they are going to tell us a little bit about the recommendation. And we're also, you sat up to introduce yourself, that's not the first time you're going to stand up, so don't get too comfortable in your seats. So the first person I'd like to present is Nanette Hunter. She's president and CEO of DUnique Tools, Inc., and president of Your Tools, LLC. She's a native of Oakland. She's the president of her company and was founded by her father, Mike Hunter. She organized Your Tools in 2014 and began operations in 2015. She was instrumental in targeting and developing accounts with Amazon, Walmart, Overstock, Ace Hardware, the Home Depot stores in the US and Canada. She has received the following Home Depot awards: Home Depot Top Minority Supplier, Home Depot Women's Star Supplier, I like that. She graduated from California State Hayward with a Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice Administration. She also is a graduate of our Dartmouth Tech Executive Education Program and UCLA Anderson School of Management Executive Education Program. She's participant in the Entrepreneur Mentoring Program, Inc., and Inc. Magazine, and William J. Clinton Foundation Partnership. She helped us get here today because she helped organize us for this presentation. So she gets a lot of credit for that. Next we have, yay! Which included 2 backup laptops that actually weren't the actual laptop that we used, but we still have the presentation, so awesome. Rachel Conte, my former neighbor on Grand Avenue and friend, and designer in Oakland of Owl and Wood, a small retail shop founded in 2012, specializing in new and vintage. Newly relocated her store to 4719 9th Street in Old Oakland. Raquel and her husband have a background in the apparel industry and have worked for more than a decade in design, director for Levi's Women's Red Tab label in San Francisco. Raquel recently created her own collection of beautiful basics designed under the label O&W by Alan Wood, made right here in Oakland, and she has some stories about how she's been able to do that and what she has to go through to do that. And she's also the brand manager for Red Bay Coffee Roasters, founded by her husband Keba Conte. So they're like an Oakland power couple, basically. I'm going to skip over Sal because I'm going to introduce him last. And we have Barbara Leslie. Barbara Leslie has 20 years of experience in local, state, and federal advocacy on behalf of businesses in Oakland. Her most recent role, she was a key player in government affairs for AT&T in Alameda County. She's already held leadership positions at Oakland Chamber of Commerce, including an executive director of Leadership Oakland program, serving as founder of OPAC, and has volunteered chair for the Public Policy Committee. She has also been the board member of the chamber, as diverse as Hayward, Berkeley, Oakland, African American Trend, and Walnut Creek. She's also served as a member of chair of Oakland's Workforce Development Investment Board. So we're very happy. She'll tell you a little bit more when she speaks about what the chamber does. And then we have Evan Glenn, another new friend, who has over 10 years of airport concession experience in high-end retail and food and beverage. He is co-owner of Green Beans Coffee Osteria SFO Group in the San Francisco International Airport. He's a local resident and landlord in Oakland's District 2, and he was appointed by Rebecca Kaplan to represent the at-large seat for the task force. And the man is very well connected, so he has lots of stories about small business. And then finally, I'm going to hand it over to Sal. Sal represents District 1 in North Oakland on the Small Business Task Force. Until recently, he owned and ran Actual Cafe and Victory Burger in North Oakland for 8 years. He sold those businesses as a result of the changing economic conditions that we just spoke about. He has been a 4-time small business owner during his 26 years as an Oakland resident, and if there's a meeting that's discussing small business, you will see Sal at it. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sal, and you can tell us about what we learned.
Thanks, Amy, and thank you, Vice Mayor Campbell Washington, and thank all of you for coming out and spending valuable time with us today. I love to see new people getting plugged into the conversation about the Small Business Task Force and the work that we're doing, and we collectively, I think, hope that this is the beginning of a process that will unfold into more directions over time. So, what we found through the process was that we agreed upon certain key challenges that we were facing as small businesses. The first was lack of advocacy on the part of the City of Oakland. We felt that the City of Oakland didn't understand small business very well and did not speak to the small business community or to the public about the small business community in ways that were effective. That there was affection among on the part of various people in the city organization and city government, but that was not actually translating into meaningful action that was helping the small business conditions in the city. Public safety and blight was a common concern among small businesses. Property crime, vandalism, dumping, violent crime, mental health issues. A lot of businesses reported that their customers felt unsafe visiting their premises, especially during certain times when events were happening. So, key concern. We all agreed that the city bureaucracy felt disorganized and frustrating. As customers of the city needing permit services, public works, traffic, public safety, we felt that there was not very good coordination between those services, and again, no advocate for small business need within that overall infrastructure. Rising rents, I mean, you hear this everywhere, this is the truth. And rising rents affect small business in the obvious way, which is commercial rents go up, and the story of a small business is being displaced because if its rent doubled or tripled, that's a common story, you'll hear that. But the less obvious impact is that customers and employees of small businesses are facing rapidly increasing residential rents. Our workers as small businesses are increasingly leaving Oakland for cheaper living conditions, and in many cases don't find it worthwhile to commute to Oakland for the jobs that we have for them here, which is creating workforce challenges. And our customers who are spending their money with small businesses are spending more of their paycheck on their rent and have less disposable income to give, especially for discretionary spending like dining out or retail gifts or non-essentials in their life. And small business fills a lot of that niche for many customers. Cost of doing business, not just rents, but Amy mentioned waste management and the tremendous increase that we saw in waste disposal costs in 2015. Utilities in general have gone up drastically over the past several years. And local businesses often have the value of doing business locally. So when a local business buys from another local business, all of these pressures are compounded up the supply chain. If I'm buying from a local supplier who's paying Oakland rents, hiring Oakland workers, paying Oakland supply costs, all those trickle up to me, and I have to pass them on to my customers. Lack of data and insights, it's difficult in a lot of cases. We asked a lot of questions going through the Small Business Task Force process about what's happening in Oakland, what sectors are growing, what sectors are shrinking, what are the economic trends, where can we look for growth opportunities. That data exists in certain places, isn't well organized, isn't consolidated, isn't accessible in all the places that we need it. And secondly, on data, data about the city's internal processes is disorganized and hard to get to. So looking at permit counts and permit intervals, or the number of customer calls that the Business Assistance Center gets, and what sectors and districts and ownership types that those calls come from, that's difficult information to access today. And workforce challenges, I talked a little bit about the costs of employment, and Amy mentioned Measure FF and increasing minimum wage. But wages are going up not just because minimum wage is legislating them up. Wages are going up because workers are an increasingly rare commodity. And as supply dwindles, cost increases. So we, all businesses are having to pay additional premiums for the employees that they employ. And one set of problems. Another set of problems is there is still, there are still large groups of workers who could be working for small businesses in Oakland, but the gaps between the workers who can provide the work and the small businesses who want to put them to work are often too large to bridge. Workforce development programs don't meet the needs of small businesses in the ways that we often hope that they will. Next slide. But there's a good side. Small business owners are in Oakland because they feel like their customers are in Oakland. Some of that means that they're serving their own neighborhoods. Some of it means that they're located geographically near an industry that they serve that is prevalent here. But small business owners have relationships with their customers, and in a lot of cases, the values of the small business are the values of the community that they serve. And that comes through in the communications that we hear from small businesses that we spoke to in our own personal experiences. Emotional ties to Oakland. I have to say, I love Oakland. I've lived here for 26 years, and I have been frustrated with things going on in Oakland a lot of times during that 26 years, but every time I've convinced myself to stay and fight for Oakland. And I'm still staying and fighting for Oakland. And one of the key things that emotionally holds me to Oakland is the diversity of the experience that I have in my daily existence. The fact that I can look out into a room and I can see people from different professional and social and economic and racial backgrounds and feel like I'm part of the community with them is a powerful experience, and I think we share that. I often hear Mayor Schaaf talking about diversity as being the most important attribute that the public of Oakland reports as a value, and I share that value, and many of us as small business owners do. Creativity, we hustle. Small business owners hustle, and we'll continue to hustle. Disruption that we're talking about is going to create both pain and opportunity, and we, the entrepreneurs, will go toward the opportunity. We will be creative, we'll find new solutions. Community, I'm part of a group of Oakland entrepreneurs, and I feel lucky to be. I feel like these are my people, and I want to continue to be part of that community and continue to evolve with them. Employing locals, this is what we do. We work locally, we spend locally, we employ locally. These are our values. So, thank you.
After we set the stage of kind of what are the positives and what are the challenges, we started a process of brainstorming ideas and then prioritizing those ones according to some surveys that we did, interviews that we did, and then just our work in the room. So Nanette and Raquel are going to go over those challenges, and listen carefully because you have dots by you. I'm going to ask you to think about which ones do you think are the biggest challenges, and you're going to get up and vote on those. You get one set of 3 dots for every business you own. So if you have more than one business, you can put 6 dots on.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, it sounds like it. Basically, the 3 points that I'm taking you through is what we thought was kind of imperative for us to move forward with. So one was to improve the permitting process, and I think everybody has stories or knows somebody who's gone through this grueling and very kind of difficult navigation of getting permitted as a small business. And we all have stories about it. So I think for us, we felt it was really important that the Small Business Commission could find a way to really collaborate with the Planning Commission and sit down and really try to design some new ways that would really make this process more easy. I mean, as a business owner myself, my husband and I, Red Bay Coffee, we just got a big warehouse in Foodwell, and we spent 6 months just kind of working with the lack of communication between PG&E and the planning process, and it just cost us lots of money, and I think a lot of people have this kind of experience. So one of the things is to find a way to finalize this process and formalize it in a way that will make it easier for small business to navigate. For sure get faster approvals and maybe ways that people can prepare so they have some kind of feeling of how long this process is going to take so they can plan their budget through that. And just in general, just find ways and places where small businesses can go and get help to navigate this process. The other one that was really big on everybody's was this public safety and the blight. It's been, I think, increasing. People see it, and it's not just downtown. It's also businesses who has manufacturing. They're in locations where a lot of times dumping and stuff like that happens. And again, I had my own experience, just found an amazing sewing facility that had been in Oakland for 25 years. She's on East 12. And just to get into her facility, I had to kind of walk around mattresses and sofas and all kinds of stuff. And her workers has to do the same. And who do you talk to? How do you find out how you can improve areas like that? So that was one of the big things. We know there's a new police chief in place, and what we really think is important is that it's possible to work with her up front and saying, small businesses is really important, and it could be part of her strategies moving forward. The last one was subsidized and financial support. Small businesses, like Sal was talking about, is really kind of on the bottom of the barrel and feeling all the burden of the result of the changing economy. And what we really feel like there could be more financial incentives and programs aimed towards these small businesses. It could be a sales tax rebate, it could be a business tax rebate, it could be facade, tenant improvement. And again, a lot of these, there is actually incentive and programs. A lot of times people just don't know how to find them. How do you know that you could get help with your facade sign? How do you know you can get help with other part of opening your business? And I think that has always been a little bit of a jungle, and we feel like it's really important that these incentive programs are visible and easy accessible, especially for small businesses. I think that was it. Yeah.
So, I guess I need to turn my mic on, huh? Can everyone hear me? So we also have some more recommendations, and we know that across the city there's different districts, and certain districts have associations that work together. The businesses belong to those associations so they can give a voice to the city to improve their areas. And so the in Business Improvement District, there are I would say 10 district that's represented, and they connect with the key city agency and representatives to make sure the area is vibrant and is thriving. And some areas are not represented. And I'm in East Oakland, and I noticed that you know, like you said, when you walk out, you see mattresses, you see different things. So who do you communicate, and how do your associations come together to really improve those areas and communicate with the city, and also the city planning those you know, those plans to make sure the resources are there for the businesses to call upon and have a good, or I want to say, representation. So I also noticed when I did my research, the Chamber of Commerce has a, once a month they have a meeting where the associations could, you know, communicate. And also the other districts, they have their services too. So I thought that was interesting to know that, hey, you know, we have to, how to say, engage as well. You know, we just can't say, city, do all this work, but we have to engage as a business and want to be a part and start something in the city. Also, commercial rent planning and stabilization. It's important that as a business that your rent doesn't go up. Because if you're leasing and all of a sudden a project such as the BRT, as Andy was mentioning, impacts the business. And then if money is coming down a pipeline to improve those buildings and the rent goes up, then the business is pushed out. So how do we have a connection with the city as a, how would you say, a good landlord to say, okay, here's an incentive to make sure that you don't raise the rent so this business can stay there and thrive in that area. So more or less, again, stabilizing businesses and making sure they're not pushed out. And then the workforce development programs, and that's what the task force is coming to the city of Oakland and sitting at the table and say, let's communicate, let's find out what's going on and how we can improve our relationship with the city, and not how we say they sit together and say, okay, this is what we think. No, this is what we know. This is because we communicated with all the businesses, and we want to work together as a team. So thank you.
Awesome. So those are our recommendations. Now it's time for you to vote. So on the back there is our 6 sticky notes that relate to the 6 recommendations up here. You have sticky dots. So go up and tell us what are the top 3 things for you. And if we've missed something or you have another something, there's some pens right on the white flip chart, the information. Nobody asks in the age of Facebook,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna. Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, go ahead. I work.
agree. It's not, it gets ignored.
Yeah,
It really gets
there's only
ignored.
one dog, but
The whole city. So basically, it's just taking those three dots and putting
But also small businesses.
Okay.
I can put two in one.
Yeah,
we are opening in San
All right, so it looks like from the back here that we did a pretty good job in prioritizing because you're helping us see. So it looks like public safety number 1, improving permit process is number 2. Addressing district inequities is 3, and rent stabilization 4, workforce development is like 5, and then subsidies and financial support is last, which is very interesting. That people think there's problems that are more important than just getting some support financially. So that's really helpful, and all of us are continuing to think about how to give this support for the city. And with that, so those were like the big nuts to crack, as you can imagine. Public safety is kind of a big nut to crack in Oakland. So what we did is make a recommendation, and Evan and Barb are going to talk about the recommendation, which is trying to be as practical as possible. So I'll hand it over to you guys.
Okay, so I'm going to go from right to left. And basically, these recommendations were presented to Libby Schaaf, Mayor Schaaf, and this was a condensed list that she suggested would be considered to be approved upon by the City Council. Basically, this was a collective effort between the city, the task force, and the public. And so the first recommendation was small business marketing campaigning. As everyone knows here, marketing is extremely important for your business. I mean, at this stage in the information age, marketing is everything. After communicating with a lot of small businesses through a lot of social media portals, Town Square being one of them, a lot of small businesses reached out to me directly to tell me more about their marketing solution strategies for small businesses. And that's one reason why this recommendation is so important. Another reason is because with the influx of new citizens coming into Oakland and tourists coming into Oakland, there is a need for there to be more visibility for small businesses so they can come and eat and shop and things of that nature, along with business-to-business relationships. It's very important that everyone know who everyone is so they can get their resources local so the dollar can stay in Oakland as much as possible. I think everybody would agree with that as well. Now, in regards to the data, I wanted to pass that off to Barbara. Me and Barbara work with the Economic Development Department. We've worked on data analysis. Barbara is with the Chamber. She has more in-depth information on that, and I think she would be better suited to address that issue. Barbara? Sure.
Good morning. I'm Barb Leslie, and again, I think as the introduction indicated, I'm the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. And just to give you a little bit more background, I myself actually have lived in Oakland for about 25 years, raised both my children here as well. And as many people in the audience know, I'm married to a serial entrepreneur, so I share your pain. we, at the Chamber, we represent the multitude of businesses that sort of are a smaller ecosystem than the whole city. So we represent small businesses all the way to large businesses. And just to give you an idea of sort of how the city plays out in terms of that, usually sort of the numbers that we see in our analysis is about 85% of businesses in Oakland are small businesses, and that definition can vary a little bit depending upon if we're using a federal definition or sort of our local analysis, and that's whether or not you have 50 employees, or a lot of times we use about 20, 25 employees as small businesses in Oakland. And they represent about 47% of the workforce. And the rest of the businesses in Oakland, the larger businesses, are the mid-size actually, and that's a group of people we really want to continue to pay attention to because they're the ones who are also growing jobs. They represent about 53% of the workforce. So for us, it's really important to support the entire ecosystem in the community because each part of the ecosystem relies on each other to succeed. So that's what we advocate a lot for, and certainly spend about, one of our major activities is sort of the networking of all of the partners in Oakland that do this kind of work. So about 3 years ago when I arrived at the Chamber in this role, and again I have been in Oakland for a long time and worked there a long time ago as well as here in City Hall, I was really felt it very important for us to sort of tell the story about businesses in Oakland, not just sort of from a qualitative perspective at City Hall, but really a quantitative perspective of what the ecosystem really looked like. So we embarked on a large data project that does that. And through that work, we've produced a lot of data reporting. Most of it's on our website to allow for small businesses and large businesses and members and the electeds to really use information and data in their policymaking decisions because we think that makes better policymaking decisions. So when we were asked to participate on this body, we brought a lot of that information and sort of repackaged it relative to small businesses because what the work that we do and the data work that we use and the partnerships and tools we use allow us to really go pretty deep and look at district by district information, which allows us to see EDD employment data in different districts and different industries so that we can really make decisions on how to support different districts because obviously they vary and frankly the sales tax data and some of the employment data varies just because of what's happening sort of in our economy, and I'm not even talking about sort of the movements in Oakland, but sort of the larger economic, the way people are shopping, the way people are moving. So how do we know, how do we have the information, how do we do it, and then what do we do with that information is the major part. And the city, when they just embarked on their annual or biannual discussion around the budget, they actually asked our economists to come and provide that overriding presentation on their district so they have a better understanding. And Councilmember Washington, who's here in the room, as well as all the council members, received reports on all of that information so that they can then, when they move forward, make decisions that are helpful. So the task force felt it was really important to continue the work. Obviously the Chamber does this work all the time and we'll continue it. In fact, we're embarking on a citywide survey, a business survey. It's actually going out today, so many of you might get it. And we're actually surveying all businesses in Oakland, as well as just the work we do day to day, supporting the work at City Hall and certainly the work supporting our businesses. The other thing I want to underscore, and it's been said earlier, is I don't think a day goes by where we're not asked to help with a permit problem at City Hall. And that can be from a small business member or from a larger member or from somebody in between. And again, I really want to rely on that sort of entire ecosystem as an important conversation. And so when we talked at the task force, certainly the permitting issues came up and were very important. And one of the things that came out of the task force discussion and what's up on the board is not only the data analysis about sales tax and all the sort of external stuff that we can pull, but really what's the city doing and how's the city operating in terms of issuing permits? What's the most issued permit in the city? How long does it take to get that permit? This is a key question. So we've asked the city to sort of do a little due diligence in the next, it was about a month ago, but hopefully in 90 days after our presentation to the city council, to actually do some internal investigation to pull up some of that information so we can then look at inconsistencies, areas for improvement, areas we can support, permitting, because that is, you know, to take a comment from the mayor and wanting to be the least irritating city in terms of city government, which is, I did not coin that phrase, she coined that phrase. But we certainly applaud that endeavor, because we actually want things to run obviously more smoothly. And the chamber, just so you understand as well, is a nonprofit ourselves. So we, you know, the challenges nonprofits are facing and small businesses are facing in Oakland in terms of location and costs are all the same things we face actually on a day-to-day basis in advocating actually for our members as well. So it's an interesting sort of endeavor that we all sort of are in this in different ways for different reasons. And so we really work hard to encourage the city to, and pressure the city to clean up some of these policies and processes so that they can be more easily utilized by our members and certainly every business in the city. So we do a lot of work in that area. I mean, I could talk further about other stuff, but that I think gets to the data point.
Thank you, Barbara. Along with that, and she touched on this pretty extensively, but the BAC retooling and revamping is a major part of our recommendations for obvious reasons. More importantly, like Barbara spoke to, was the permitting. Along with that, in our discussions, we found out, or we uncovered, that there is just a lot of support that's needed in that area, and the Economic Development Center or Economic Development Committee is coming to the City Council to be able to get support in that area, and so we're still fighting for that, and we'll get the outcome of that soon. And once we get that, then we'll be able to then turn around and start to have a quicker turnaround on the permitting, have a quicker turnaround on communication with small businesses in the city. Now, the way that we feel like all of this will flow properly is if we have a formal commission. Again, one of the things that I do personally is every time I get information from our meetings, I send it out to all my networks and all my different portals. And I get positive feedback and also get negative feedback from small businesses that say, you know, we do need a commission, we don't need a commission, this is why, and things of that nature. And so one of the things that I'd like to point out is that time is very important, and who else better than other small businesses to form a commission to be able to support small businesses, because we know what small businesses are going through. But the key here is who has the time to actually commit to this. So it's very important that we have a commission, because these people are people that are going to commit their time to address these issues to make sure that we thrive in a city that's rapidly growing, and so we can take better control of our own destiny. With that being said, I mean, that pretty much sums up our recommendations. And again, as I stated previously, we are now in the phase where they're looking at the budget to see how we can make this possible. And it would be very helpful if, when we reach out to you all in the future, when we actually do have the next meeting at City Hall, that all of you show up to show your support for a commission so we can move in the right direction.
Cool. So what Evan just touched on was after so the task force was a four meeting, 4-month project, and it started and it ended. And the next step was, since Vice Mayor Anna Campbell Washington is the chair of the Economic Development Committee of the City Council, we presented our recommendations to that committee, which put our recommendations on public record. So all the conversations that we'd had to date were not publicly recorded. They were kind of a task force. So it's been taken to that body, and that body is reviewing it. And Nandy can come up in a minute and tell us more about that. So we're still in process. But as you can hear, there's a debate about, is the commission the right entity for it, because it costs money. It's something that there's like, how many commissions? I forget, there's like 20, 30 commissions. So we're still in the process of being good entrepreneurs and creatives to say, well, what is the right design for this? Is it a commission? Is it something else? Is it an entity outside the city, or is it a collaboration? Is it a chamber? What is the right solution? Because if we all got hit by a bus, the city bureaucracy would be no different, because there's no formal entity that wakes up in the middle of the night and worries about small business within the city. So that's where we are in the process. Do you want to say any more about how the process continues?
Sure. So the task force recommendations came forward to the Community and Economic Development Committee of the City Council, and it was fortuitous that it appeared on the agenda the same day as the Economic Development Strategy for the City of Oakland. And so actually just yesterday I met with Mark Sawicki, who is the Economic Development Director here in the City of Oakland, and he has agreed to include the task force recommendations, the small business task force recommendations, folded into the economic development strategy, so that as we move that document forward and it becomes actually an implementation document, and we really move now to action-oriented steps of what we want to focus on here in Oakland with our limited resources and how we want to move that work forward. He has agreed to incorporate the work of the task force into that economic development strategy so that we can follow it as a city council committee and check in on it regularly to see how the recommendations are being embedded into that work. The reason I think that's important is as we are in this discussion and debate about whether there is a commission or not, I really felt strongly that I wanted to have a way to formalize the recommendations and follow them so that it wouldn't just drop off the face of the earth in this interim period when there is no task force and there's no commission. So that's where we are right now.
Great. So we've just talked at you for an hour, and now it's time to take questions and hear from you. Yeah. Can you come, why don't you come up to the mic so.
I'm Steve Lowe. I'm Vice President of the West Oakland Commerce Association. And last time there was a meeting here, we talked about the value of a small business commission. It's something that we've been interested in a long time. But because there are so many other problems in Oakland with economic development, thought that perhaps it's better to have an economic development advisory or economic development commission. This would be parallel to the planning commission, which is well attended and something that everybody deems is important. And whereas there's a lot of commissions and advisories that people don't attend to, they can't find the folks to staff it and so forth. And this was brought up by the mayor last time. She said, well, we probably don't have enough money to fund a small business task force. But I think if it were an economic development task force, because a lot of the problems that the small business community is facing have to do with barriers to economic development. And that's something I don't know that the Small Business Task Force could deal with. We have all this, what we call envirocrime in West Oakland. It's the 10 barriers to economic development. How do we get rid of those? Is that something that's a responsibility of the Economic Development Department of the city in coordination with all the other efforts that are going on? We think so. So how do we take all the good work that you've done and fold it into a larger commission on which the seats would be given to mostly small business people, and also perhaps fold in some of the other commissions that are not so well attended, so that the amount of money that's going out to fund small businesses, or not small businesses, but all these different commissions and stuff, can be maximized or strategically reconfigured so that it'll knows I got here late and can't really address all the things that you've probably covered already. But that's one of the suggestions we'd like to see, because there really is a huge problem with these barriers to economic development. The city has no real plan for it. I love Marissa's plan, but it needs to really embrace and the concept that business cannot function in an area where there's a big bag of excrement thrown on your.
Yeah.
And if I can add something after Viola speaks about what Steve just said.
Thank you. I appreciate the accommodation by the Vice Mayor about how you're going to take these recommendations somewhere, because I was looking for them and I couldn't find them anywhere. I wanted to be kind of prepared before I came here, and they weren't written anywhere. But I want to say that if this task force did singular one thing on its list, the permitting, probably would improve 1,000% for everyone that has anything to do with, you own any property, want to make any kind of improvements in a business. I've been working more recently related to the BRT, and you have a lot of businesses there have been in Oakland for many years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. I really feel doing it alone. There's been absolutely no support from the city to do it, and now like the city decides to do something, and it's kind of like, it's not helping us, okay? So, you know, we're trying to kind of work past that, but a lot of these businesses, by necessity or by desire, you know, or supporting their families and in the community, creating jobs, all this is good. I don't know if I want to get into arguing one way or the other about a formal commission, because it really says to me that we probably need to look at the 30 commissions we have now. Do we need that many? It's very hard to get volunteers to come, dedicate their time. And I've been a small business owner myself. It's kind of like, there's no way I'm going to fit into my 15, 20-hour job day another meeting. So I find that it's like, well, we need the input. I don't know how we would manage it well. But I do say that we do need, whatever recommendations need to be part of a larger economic development strategy, and also part of the budgeting. Because otherwise we're just talking to ourselves. Unless it's integrated, we're not going to go anywhere. It's got to be reflected in the budget. When the decisions are made about how we're going to balance, what are we going to balance against? Something got to go off the table. And if you're going to put anything, add on. But I can't think of anything more important today in Oakland than this work, because it really replaces, honestly, the work that should have been going on around redevelopment. Redevelopment should have been reaching out to our neighborhoods. It didn't. And it's kind of like, this is about the only last tool left for us as a community. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Viola, I totally agree with you, and I certainly underscore the permitting issue, and you said a lot of what Steve said, so I just want to make sure I underscore or comment on it, because I think it's really important. What you talked about is really, and both of you said it for different reasons, is really this idea of integration. And, you know, very often, policymakers, people like us, you know, whomever, gets very siloed because they're trying to answer a specific need to a specific constituency. But what happens is they get very siloed, and so the constituencies then end up not actually working together. And one of the things I think is very interesting about the work that the mayor's office with Jose and Annie have done in this is to sort of remind everybody that it's really important to establish those relationships and partner for the success of sort of everybody. And you know, even the outcomes of what happened through the task force is sort of a daylighting or an amplifying of all the work that's being done by organizations in Oakland to lift up Oakland, regardless of whether or not they're focused on small business or they're focused on all business. It's a really important it's really an important comment. So I would wholeheartedly agree. I can't. I think in economic development, I do think that the idea of the loss of redevelopment and this idea that the cities needs to drive it. But interestingly enough, I think it's a city-wide issue, not just a city of Oakland staff issue in terms of real economic development achievement in a post-redevelopment era. And, you know, for example, yesterday, and they're not here, I don't think today, but I want to underscore the good work at Kiva as well as everybody who's in this room. They did an event yesterday in partnership actually with our Leadership Oakland Chamber group with a small business community conversation and BRT related support at Allen Temple. For this reason, I know Town Square, I think, participated in that as well and has been doing a lot of work with Kiva. And I think the more that we have conversations with each other about doing the work, we sort of hand off the work that we do and make sure that we're all connected. I think that's really important. We certainly spend a lot of time talking to Town Square and are looking at partnerships with them, as well as Kiva's a tremendous partner of the Chambers. And I think our work is amplified and better for it, obviously, for the whole purpose of supporting the businesses in Oakland. So I think you're right on in not siloing the activities.
Thanks, Barb. I want to reinforce what Barb said about better partnerships, better communication, better coordination among organizations that exist already and are doing work throughout the city. I think we all see tremendous opportunity for more collaboration to produce better results. I also want to talk a little bit more about permits, and maybe I'm speaking to the choir here, but I think an important point to understand when we're talking about why permit delays are so critically important for small businesses is that small businesses tend to be capitalized on a shoestring, and every penny matters. And when you're putting together a business plan that shows that you're going to get profitable in the second year, and you spend an extra 6 months and $50,000 getting your permits because you're paying rent and because you're paying professionals to help you get those permits, your business is already 3 or 4 steps behind where it ought to be on day one, and that can kill a business before it opens. So, you know, I'm in violent agreement that we really need to streamline that permit process, and we need to put all the pressures in play that we can to get the city focused on organizing itself internally such that we can produce those permits efficiently but responsibly. Thanks.
Please.
Hi, I'm Darlene Crane from the Crane Works. Okay, I'm a little unusual in this situation because I'm not an Oakland resident, but I spend most of my working time in Oakland. And I did want to just say that I'm not sure we have time for a commission. I think there's tremendous pressures under small businesses, and I think with the political situation, we're going to be totally absorbed in 2018 and what those elections are going to be like. I totally vote for permitting. It's something that's tangible, that can be acted on, and that you can exert pressure on, I think. But I think we ought to look at the bigger context. This is happening all over the Bay Area, and the pressure is eastward. It's a county issue, right? Businesses are being pressured to move eastward to get lower rents for housing and for, and particularly for commercial rents. I'm active in a Western Region Supplier Diversity Council, the bigger businesses and the whole ecosystem. I think we have to think about the mid-market businesses being under tremendous threat when they're the biggest job providers. And that's a huge issue. And we also need to use all the wonderful work in our startups and saying we have to get established businesses that can survive and identify those ones who are potential mid-market businesses and all over the region. And I think that there has to be a county effort to say what are the most critical things we do, because the rate of survival just keeps going down. The Kaufman Foundation, biggest one, just issued their diversity and entrepreneurship call for bold solutions to this issue. So I think this means we all stand up and say, what can we individually do as businesses, as individuals, as organizations, and say, we gotta move. And the city will move at its pace. So I'd say pick the biggest pressure point and go. But, you know, I had surgery and I had a month to think about this, guys. Couldn't do anything else. And it is time that we all take an uncomfortable stand and get out there. If we really believe this, if we really want it, we gotta step out and push as hard as we can, because in 2 years, if we keep going this way, I do not want to imagine what that's going to look like. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Darlene, I'm sorry you had to have surgery to have a month, but I'm envious of your month to think about it. That's great.
No, you do not want to have a month to
No.
think about it under pressure.
No, but I want to underscore something you actually said in your intro when we were introducing people. You talked about a complete body of knowledge, and I think that's a really important thing. That's a theme as we talk through here in terms of integration. And also I would encourage Annie and the council to look at a staff report that was done in the Dan Lindheim administration that I have referenced previously. That was a report produced by Dun & Bradstreet that talks about the best level of the local ecosystem that can be the most successful in terms of economic development and sort of what the business mix is in terms of small, medium, and large businesses. And that it can, and I think where that's really important is in that report, and that was a few years ago, that the business area that was actually most in need of support was this mid-sized businesses, because the job creators can actually really be there.
Yeah.
And one of the other things is I think that can then be integrated with the economic development report that Mark Inzawicki and team are coming out with, because his whole goal is to grow internally and grow locally, which and to nurture the local businesses to establish growth. So I think there's a lot of ways that we just need to, as we have been doing, but continue to connect the dots.
Okay, I just one more thing. Okay, there is research, there's models for local growth, business clusters, all sizes, it's international, global. There's a lot of models to go to that the businesses know too. But I do want to make one confession. I worked with the city on the original study that proposed the Business Assistance Center in 2003, and Lisa knows that. And I do have to say it's time to let go of it. It was a good idea. It ran its course, but we need to take big steps forward, and we got to use everything we got, technology, who we know, everything we've got to keep us going.
But before you step back, you mentioned pressure points. Like, what's the biggest pressure point to create the momentum? As I can tell, you're a system thinker. So where is the pressure point now, do you think, in the current system?
I think it's the survival and the ability for the established and middle market businesses to get those permitting, to keep growing and sustaining.
Mm-hmm.
It's growing and sustaining that is the hardest. It never gets any easier, and we made it even harder.
Mm-hmm.
So permitting is a base. I think financing is another one, which is on the banks,
Mm-hmm.
and the upper levels of lending. We have to have a really clean step from Kiva, Working Solutions, all those
Mm-hmm.
into the next level. We only got one. We've got ICA. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't have capacity. So but I would say follow the money. In business, follow the money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's busy to get it, either to operate the business, launch the business, or reinvest in the business.
And one of the things that I often think about or ask the question of is, taking on additional debt. So a lot of times when you think about the polar bear analogy, an answer is taking on additional debt to get through that interim period, which creates additional pressure on individuals that have already probably have more debt than probably they should. So the balance between subsidies and incentives or givebacks for local businesses doing versus the answer for your survival is to take on more debt.
Okay, I'm going to say that we're leaving out a big thing, and I would say that for any of us that works with small businesses who are in the networks, we are truly have respect for people's innate capability, dedication, hard work, and hunger for knowledge. And I think that we've forgotten the power of knowledge, and that there's a big discussion in academia and business schools about, is business school relevant for what we've got? There was a great line in the New York Times about how you go into business school and you think you're going to save the world. You go and you graduate and you realize the only thing left is shareholder value. We've said that's the only thing. If we want a different model that is based on people and community. We gotta make it. And so I do believe we have to build that body of knowledge. And for all of us who is building that, share it in a system and make it open to the community. But we've got to find a way so that those of us that do that can also survive. We have to make an economic system where we recognize the value of it and we use it, and each one of the owners has to contribute that body of knowledge. You know, post on Town Square. Anyway. I better get off stage.
Oh, but thank you for being here. Thank you, great, thank you.
Talk to you later.
Who's next? Anybody other comments or questions?
I was not gonna get up because I'm actually not a small business owner, so I want to be respectful of folks who are. I do want to say this though off the last couple of comments, and something I've been thinking about this morning is that I think in Oakland, when we talk about small businesses, as in every conversation we're having in Oakland, there's a piece about equity that we need to keep lifting up. And I guess I want to say that I just want to check and see if we actually value all small businesses in Oakland. Because, my organization's in East Oakland, and until about 5 years ago, when the housing market crashed, I was able to buy a house a half a block above MacArthur. I lived in East Oakland, and the businesses that I see out there, and the families that run them, and the people that I know, these are businesses that actually, they serve Oakland's immigrant communities, or they serve Oakland's unfortunately shrinking, but the historically black community in Oakland. In a way that is, providing necessary day-to-day services. They actually are making it. They've been making it. And I think that, and we engage in businesses like this, I think it's really important that we make sure that that voice is in there, and that we actually ask ourselves, do we value that? Is it just small businesses we value? Or do we value the fact that small businesses are embedded in communities and ecosystems and within communities of folk, right? And if we do, right, then we got to recognize the fact that these are different communities. They might not vibe with everything that everybody up here in this room is vibing with. And I can't believe, I come to downtown Oakland and coffee costs $4. I don't even, that's not like small businesses that, more power to folk, but that's not what I know of small business in Oakland. And so I think, the first thing on this is probably we got to do no harm, and I'm saying this largely to the city, is that, it's not assumed that everybody out there just needs help. Let's assume, let's have some respect to folks and recognize that the success that folks have had in serving the communities that they serve and the markets that they serve, and let's do no harm. Right, so this comes into this whole BRT conversation and the whole rezoning of East Oakland, thereby incentivizing like the raising of rents for landlords who know that these properties are now zoned, condos over Starbucks as opposed to what they used to be. We're going out and we're re-engineering East Oakland. We're moving or removing 300 parking spaces. Right now, there's a program that's in place to help some of these businesses who, many of them are, it's very diverse set of businesses out there because the city hasn't paid any attention to it for 50 years. So it hadn't been rezoned in 50 years, so you have all kinds of businesses out there, right? And so these are businesses that are configured though around the existing environment, right? And as we're changing that environment, we're making it harder for folks to do business, and then we're making it harder for communities that they serve to continue to stay in Oakland, right? And so right now, there's a small pot of money that's been set aside to help folks adjust to the new environment. But even as we're doing this new environment, there's no money to help folks with construct. There's no programs, right? There's no attention paid to what to do about the loss of business revenue during construction. And I can tell you, you're going to see small businesses out there. You'll continue to see small businesses in East Oakland. I don't know which small businesses they'll be, because the current ones out there are really stretched. And this thing about, do you take on debt? Right, in a situation where you didn't create this, you're doing fine, right? But now it's like, yeah, all that's really offered is you can take on, I'm gonna shut your business for 6 weeks or 3-4 months, and I'm gonna give you a loan. Right, so I mean, I'm just raising this up as an example of, I really hope in Oakland, and I'm saying this to the city, that we really, it's not just about small business. Small business is cool, I get it, right? It's about what small businesses do we care about, what communities do we care about, and how do we get those voices in here, because you don't really see them down at City Hall so much. So I appreciate y'all, I just want to say that.
Thank you, Andy. I'd like to say something. The businesses that are here today and the business organizations that are here today, is very important that you are here today. Because there's a conversation that needs to happen. Many of, like myself, I'm a business owner, I'm very busy. I don't have time to attend a lot of meetings. But something happened where I'm like, I'm gonna advocate for this, because it's very important that I, as a business, engage also with the city. Because at first I was like, the city didn't contact me about a project. And I was blaming them, but now I said, wow, I should have been engaged in an organization or association, that I belong to, such as ICA or the National Fire Council, or any organization, but at the same time, the communication has been a gap. And so that's why we're trying to bring the organizations that the city works with and the business owners together, and not necessarily the businesses are communicating to the city, but we're communicating to some of the organizations that we belong to. So we need to make sure that communication comes together. So if a project comes down the pipeline that's going to impact our business, we'll know about it. It won't happen in front of our eyes and like, oh wow, and there's a loss. So I just want to say, all the business organizations that's here today, is so important, because this is where the conversation starts. And to the city to work together and to engage the businesses that are not here today. But how can you reach out to the businesses that are in your community so we can have this conversation and pull together, because it's really, really, really important that we move forward.
And to add to that, just based off of the last few speakers, one of the most important things to note is that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to be able to address all these issues if the data is not up to date. Okay? After working with the Economic Development Board, the most current data that we have on Oakland is 2012. Okay? So, first things first, we need to update the data to see where these issues actually lie, and then highlight these issues. Because here's the thing, you're right. In some of the underserved communities, they're not coming to City Hall to be able to address their issues. But through the data, they don't have to, right? Because now we can see it, and then we can go to them. And that's part of our responsibility as well. And Barbara and I are working with Marissa Raya to be able to do that. We already uncovered some issues based off past data in regards to equity and equality. And that was actually brought up at the last city council meeting, which I thought was very empowering and awesome. And I'm gonna repeat that again, because I like to repeat things that are important. When we uncovered specific inequality data with the city of Oakland, it was not only noted, but it was addressed to city council in the meeting as consideration to move forward. What basically that means is that they're taking our recommendations extremely serious. They're taking the inequality issue extremely serious. And so I think that the data portion is something that should be, top priority to address the economic issue, right? And then it does bring everything together in regards to all the other commissions or boards that are addressing other issues along with Small Business Task Force. So yes, on some level, our Small Business Task Force is expanding into something else. But in the interim, what you're seeing today is what we felt, or what the mayor also felt, or what we collectively felt was something that could be presented, that could be pushed along in a faster, in a quicker manner. So I just wanted to just speak to that before we moved on to.
Yeah, and just to make a fine point on the data, like we are talking to ourselves, as someone said, and if we have the data that could actually highlight where the real issues are, we could make better informed decision making, and it wouldn't be one group versus another group, or it would be clear as day that these are where the problems are, and these are the trends that we're seeing, and what are the programs we need to develop to address those trends. But without that, we're a bunch of really well-intentioned people who want to solve a very complex systemic problem, and we're doing it kind of blindly. So, but we know the chamber has data, we know that a lot of organizations have data, and we know the city has data, but it's a big project to be able to synthesize that, to get insights that we can then move forward on and get something done.
I want to go back to an earlier theme that you've touched on, which is helping to connect the various groups and organizations that are representing small businesses and other constituencies to each other. I think this goes back to a clear understanding that there are organizations in the various districts and neighborhoods who form because of ethnic identification, because of language affiliation, because of geography, because of the sector in which a bunch of businesses work. Those organizations exist, they have existed, they continue to exist. And I think we collectively need to make a strong effort to identify those organizations and to connect them to this broader network intentionally. Things like NCPCs and other community organizations that form for other reasons but often have small business and their customers represented are other ways to reach some of the geographies that don't always get plugged into this conversation. The business owners cannot always come to City Hall, that's clear. And we can't always send people out from City Hall to meet with every individual small business in the city. It does not scale. So we have to identify the organizations that can help us do that and bring them in as partners.
Yeah, and I think kind of as a small business owners, we all know, again, time. I mean, we're all volunteering our time, and we all overwhelmed most of the time trying to make it all happen. But we just started our own organization, which was started by Omami Martin, and it's all small business, women-owned small business organization. And that's, again, I think something that feels overwhelming, but at the same time, when you're in a group with other people, and maybe one or two can kind of take the words further, you don't always have to do it all yourself. So I do think it is important. It feels like a big task to even participate in something, and like you said, one other meeting is just one more meeting too much. But at the same time, I think it was also said really well, if we don't do something now, it's not going to happen. And I do think instead of individual businesses, if there's ways that more small groups can get together, you have a bigger voice, and it's just necessary, otherwise you're not going to get heard.
Yeah, that's why I keep thinking that everything we've talked about here is above and beyond small business. It includes small business, and small business may be the pumping heart of how all this happens, but it is all about economic development. And so we need to formalize this discussion, and we do need a commission, I think, with which to do that. Because as the rest of the Bay Area is beginning to coalesce into megalopolis, we need a stronger voice about what economic development is right at the very core city within that megalopolis. As a matter of fact, if we're adept enough at describing what Oakland's condition is, the rest of the Bay Area will have to resonate with it, because this is where the port is. Just like Piraeus is the port of Athens, when you go back and look at the way that cities evolve over the years, we have to have a better understanding of what our commercial problems are. And otherwise they get too out of whack, as Andy said, and there's issues of social equity, or people being pushed out of one area because there hasn't been a balance figured out by City Hall. So I just think that we do need a commission. The commission should be focused more on larger economic development problems that we face, so that we can be better informed when we're in dialogue with EDAB or with ABAG, where Marissa used to work, and all the other super regional agencies that right now are suppressing Oakland in a way. Caltrans, for instance, is the largest landowner in West Oakland, and not surprisingly, it's the shelter for most of the homeless folks that are out there. And the homeless folks are, in some cases, really nice people who need a little bit of help, but others are there conducting sex trafficking and all that stuff. And they are doing so because Caltrans is not a participant in the economic development discussion of this city. Yes, Joe can go out and meet with them occasionally, and they'll say, yeah, well, we'll do something. Maybe we'll help you with a couple of gallons of paint so that you can paint a mural underneath these big structures. But that'll cost you. You know, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We need to have a better understanding of where we are in this large megalopolis that we are.
Thank you.
I think we can't do that unless we have a commission where we can formalize this discussion.
Right, thank you. So I think we're coming to the conclusion of, were you a speaker?
Actually, I am a speaker.
Okay.
May I speak?
You may. I thought you were coming to.
No, I'm not cutting you off. I actually am probably going to, partially this is my personal opinion, and a lot of it is my opinion as staff to the City of Oakland, and my recommendations to the commission and to our small businesses. I agree with the comments that in order for change to happen, you need to get involved. I agree with the comment that the city has not placed, we say a lot of things, we make a lot of commitments, we say things that are very progressive, but we don't act progressively. And I feel like I can say that, and I'll probably have to ask for forgiveness versus permission.
You're among friends.
Yeah. But I do want to say that it is extremely important for the small business community, for individuals that are served by our small businesses, to really inform and insist upon commitment, real commitment, which is dollars, which is staffing, which is policy changes, which is results from not just the City of Oakland. It's true, we live in a regional place, so the county, we're a government city. The county influences a lot of what happens in the City of Oakland. Caltrans, the state government as well. So there are different bodies of organizations and government agencies that impact us. I disagree with Darlene. We do need a business assistance center. It does need to be repositioned and reevaluated. And why we need it is because what Andy said. Not everybody owns a computer in this city. Not everybody is digital. You need a place where people know they can go to get services. And some might question if we, and maybe I'm not taking this personally, I'm taking it because it's a day-to-day thing, that when we serve 400 people every month who need information, they don't know where to go because they're speaking in Spanish, Chinese, Burmese, whatever language it is, and they're not getting help by the front counter. So they're coming to us, and we literally are taking people to the right places. We do recognize that their cost of doing business is extremely expensive. The minimum wage issue, everybody wants better wages, but we all should have been better involved. We shouldn't have allowed that issue to get ahead of us and away from us in terms of really making sure it worked for small businesses. So the Business Assistance Center, I have one staff person in there who today it's closed because they're in Eastmont Mall doing a workshop with East Oakland residents. So we have 5 people in the city of Oakland who do business development for a city of 410,000. Where's the equity in that? We have a number of organizations. Oakland is lucky. We have 80 plus business service organizations whom we try to interact with. We have 10 business improvement districts that, yes, they're expensive to start, but they're beneficial for businesses. And we are in the process of creating 3 more, and we are looking for ways to help small merchants create their own collective solutions. So there are things that can be done from a city level, but economic development is a citywide responsibility. It's a community-wide responsibility. And so it's really, really important that if these are the concerns that the Small Business Task Force has brought together, they also need to seek more input. Because the commission, while it had a good flavor of Oakland, it didn't reach far enough. So they need to continue to seek and be challenged in their recommendations, and they also need to make sure that the recommendations are representative of the whole of Oakland. So I think it's really important as participants today, to stay involved, consult with your council member, understand that as consumers, we are all consumers here. We need to patronize our businesses. It's not going to the new restaurant down the street, it's going to the new restaurant in East Oakland, or it's using the shoe shop in West Oakland. And really insisting upon making sure that our police have walking officers in our shopping areas, making sure that AC Transit does its job on the BRT side, and it's making sure that Public Works picks up the garbage and your council members serve your constituents and your staff understand how valuable you are. So we are, as a city, as a group of city staff, we can do an economic development strategy, but it doesn't mean anything unless it can be implemented. So that's where we are. We can only do so much, but we are looking for ways to partner with you. And we are looking for ways to make sure that we're serving you better. We're really open to ideas. I think we started some great conversations, some great things that can be done. Frankly, I didn't even know Barbara was doing a business survey, and I think that's great. It is something that we need to do. I learned about the Women's Retail Task Force. We don't need to know everything, but we would like to be part of what you do and your ideas are. So I really appreciate the opportunity to provide some input. I know we're already starting on some of the things that we talked about. City ED and planning is coming together to talk about conversations, a way of improving it. But, and quite frankly, I think the challenge to looking at how we take these 4 recommendations to the next level is the push that needs to happen. And so again, I would welcome additional comments and ideas that you have, and I'll be around for a while, so I'd love to talk to you.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more. No? Okay. So she did better. So what we wanted to do is leave some time for people to Oh, sure. I think one more, and then we wanted to make sure people had time to network. And
my English is not too good. The only I want to say, I got 50 years in the business in Fruitvale district. It's coming BRT. No parking, AC Transit, and the city promised to make a building for parking. He never do. Now, more crime. All the business on Fruitvale pretty soon will disappear. Okay, this is my recommendation. I got 50 years in the business. I never see crime like now. Okay, I'm in 38 and international, and all the business, the restaurant, shopping is really boring. Because the city, it don't do nothing. No police, too much crime, pretty soon no more parking.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's go back to our picture, the image. I think that what we've talked about kind of, synthesizes what we've been talking about and getting together. So this is a step. We've been a long journey. Thank you for coming. Eliza, sorry, a couple people asked for the presentation. Is there somewhere that we could put it on the web, on somewhere public
Sure.
that we could put it, so if people are interested, where might they look? Where could you put it?
I hope everybody signed up, and because I want to make sure you're part of our economic development newsletter. Secondly, I would say we're in process of changing our old funky website into a new, more interactive site. But I would still say, gosh, I wish I could answer the question. How about Town Square?
Yeah.
Let's do it there.
Okay, great. I think it was up there before.
I
but
like
I think
the
we can
clue.
find it on.
And then I'll link back
Yeah.
of where it is appropriately on the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks.
We can actually post it under resources on our
Great.
platform. too.
Okay, great. Well, we'll do that. So thank you so much for your time. It's been great, and we hope to have some time here to meet up with some of you.
Thank you all. This is a great conversation.